Introduction. Thanks, Jason. We are a publicly traded company, so I may be making some forward-looking statements today. We are traded on NASDAQ under the symbol KOOL, K-O-O-L. Our technology is really a complex integrated process that's multiple devices in a single platform. And it allows us in a single operating procedure for the patient to roll in the door, for us to harvest their cells with a specialized harvest device, process them where we can select the target cells that we want, diagnose them or QC them right in the operating room to make sure we've produced the product that we desired to produce, and deliver them through specialized delivery devices for their specific indication. The commercialization strategy for the platform is any hospital can buy the equipment and have it readily available in their operating room, depending upon whether it's going into the heart, going into an orthopedic indication, or into, for example, an oncology application for bone marrow transplant. And then they use a consumable, disposable kit on each of the patients. I can get this going. Our pipeline is very robust. We have 9 different indications in the pipeline. Right now, though, I will say we are in late-stage clinical development, as Jason mentioned, for our critical limb ischemia product. We are in the final rounds of application process with the FDA for a pivotal trial that will be run in the U.S. for CLI in no-option patients that are modified Rutherford 5. What we saw in our 2 feasibility studies, we did one in intra-arterial delivery and one study in intramuscular delivery, is in the intramuscular delivery approach, we salvaged 82% of these patients that would have seen a near-term amputation. A little lower results in the intra-arterial delivery. We only had a limb salvage rate of about 52%. So we are scaling up in the U.S. The pivotal trial for point-of-care intramuscular delivery, single treatment process. Our goals in that trial are amputation-free survival at 12 months, and then we do as well look at composite endpoints for the secondary endpoints so we can get reimbursement. Having clinically significant impact on the patient's life, not only saving their legs, but other measurements are important for Medicare for reimbursement, and we've designed the trial to maximize our reimbursement along the path. We do see in our CLI trial, unlike many others, we do see very hard clinical endpoints like wound closure. We saw statistically significant changes in walking distance. The average or the mean walking distance in our feasibility studies was under 15 meters. By the end of the study at 12 months, the mean was 130-some meters. We've also followed the patients now for almost 3 years post-treatment. We have a durable treatment. These patients, it's sustainable. And even if the reimbursement strategy in the U.S. changes to some amortized success rate, we believe that our patient population will be there and will get us reimbursed all the way through the process. Other indications for us are in acute myocardial infarction, where we will be moving into a phase 1B or phase 2A, depending upon where the regulators come down on the decision. We already did a pilot trial of a single patient, followed them for 24 months. This is for a particular specific AMI patient. It's a low ejection fraction patient who has not responded well to revascularization with stenting or reperfusion with a thrombolysis approach. And then our hematology oncology platform is really focused where we currently have about $16 million in revenue per annum right now. It's focused on the bone marrow transplant market, where we will enable transplants in patients who cannot find a suitable donor. And we have 2 platforms underway there, one for ABO mismatch patients and one for HLA mismatch patients.
Great. So why don't we put that slide back up on the pipeline and talk a little bit. Ken, you've been involved on kind of both sides of the business. I know you've been involved on the CRO side as well as now taking on the device side. Help me understand what you see as the marriage of both sides, and what advantages drove the decision towards developing a therapeutic at what was historically a device company?
Right. It's a good question. So what we see in the devices, and all of the devices I showed you in the integrated platform already have 510K status. So they are approved in many nations across the country. And what we found was even though we could make regulatory claims, we couldn't make on-label curative claims. And that was a difference between A, the physicians being comfortable that the treatment would work, and B, the patients or the payers being comfortable in giving us really the value for the investment we had made. So we made an active decision to go for on-label clinical claims, for example, taking our platform into CLI and saying that we will have X percentage of amputation-free survival at the end of a 12-month time period, and that should get us what was historically maybe a $500 to $1,000 per patient reimbursement, now up to around $10,000 to $15,000 per patient. So it was a significant transition. The utilization of our CRO has been important to us because we do this in the operating room, and there's been no CRO that we could find across the world that had the competency to take cellular therapies into the operating room and being able to conduct them with any confidence. So we developed that in-house. And having developed that, it's very important for us now because the FDA likes our approach of having these onboard diagnostics, and they're now starting to move towards requiring that of all autologous suppliers, that we will actually have to prove what the cell output product meets a certain quality standard, and we have a ready-made team ready to go in the operating room and do that right now from a commercialization standpoint.
And so, you know, that kind of brings us into what's been happening from the point of view of regulators in the start of the phase 2 trial. So I'd like to back up, though, before we jump into that, which is, you know, a little bit the elephant in the room, and say, what is it that allows you to go through the device pathway where others cannot? And you know, I could, you know, is it manipulated? Is this a closed sterile device? Help me understand what the dynamics are that so differentiates Cesca versus others in the competitive landscape.
Okay. So I think the criteria in the FDA has become clearer on this recently, and hopefully will become even clearer in the near future. But our products are bone marrow derived, minimally manipulated, and can be in the orthopedic space homologous use. And in that approach, we don't require significant PMA path. We can continue to sell as we're doing now. Procedures are done thousands per year in the U.S. and across the country for things like spinal fusion using autologous bone marrow product produced out of our devices. However, in the non-homologous use, although it's minimally manipulated, the second trigger for whether you are safe in a 510K path or safer in a PMA path is that homologous trigger. And when we start injecting bone marrow stem cells, bone marrow derived stem cells into other spaces besides the bone, we trigger that second question mark. And that puts us still in a device path, but outside of a straight 510K.
So, you know, there are others that add products, outside enzymes for digestion. Maybe they're using an adipose-derived. Once you go down that route, you kind of fall out of the device pathway and into the biologic pathway. Is that fair?
That's correct. And I can show you on the device up in the upper picture, the greenish-looking device, that is actually a smart vision-based system. So we don't add any chemicals to process our cells. But on board, we do this under centrifugation. We have a vision system that's actually looking at the cells as they're being separated. And in 1/1000th of a second, a lever goes back and forth, moving the cells of interest over into a target bag or a waste bag. And so we're selecting them based on physics without chemical involvement.
And that's really the heart of this company, right?
That's right.
That is the heart and engine of this company. So now help me understand how, if I'm doing point of care on a patient, I've harvested their marrow and I want to treat them, how do I now certify that product? And if the FDA is asking you for sterility, if I go back to my days as a scientist, right, I think of Petri dishes and ovens and, you know, reporting back 2 weeks later. That's not feasible. So how are you going to resolve these requirements from regulators that you're going to be able to deliver product standardization? How on top of you are that? and where are you in the regulatory landscape in terms of starting this trial?
Good. So we felt early on that autologous products that were being practiced in the operating theater lacked good quality control. And we were concerned that one of the reasons why there might have been less than impressive clinical outcomes across the board was that patients were getting different cell products from time to time. So several years ago, we began developing flow cytometry-based rapid diagnostics that can be done in 1 to 2 minutes right in the operating room that will tell the physician that A, they have enough autologous cells present and those cells are in the right quality standard. So we've built in that automation. And then most recently in our IDE pivotal application to the FDA, they liked our approach, but they threw the new nuance to us, the curveball, where they asked for sterility. And we've put our heads together with the FDA, and the approach that we're going to take under their advice is to do a rapid gram stain right in the operating room, and if that's clean, the patient gets treated.
So, you know, Cesca's very, very exciting. It's exciting to me in that phase 2 trial on CLI, how many patients will that trial be?
224.
And what's the endpoint?
So the endpoint's amputation-free survival.
Adjudicated.
Adjudicated, correct. Yes.
So meaning that if the vascular surgeon deems that limb should be amputated, that it qualifies as an amputation, even if the patient continues to hope, hey, maybe tomorrow it will behave better.
Right.
How long do you think it will take to enroll that trial? And is that a U.S.-based trial? Is that a global trial? Give me an idea of the timeline here.
So we've received feedback from the FDA. One, we applied for permission to do the trial in the U.S. and in India. And we wanted to do less than 5 centers in India because we intend to also pursue marketing approval there because it's a huge CLI population. FDA accepted that approach. We've applied for 60 sites, up to 60 sites in the U.S. And the time for enrollment compared to other trials is, in discussion with the FDA, we've opened up the parameters for things like creatinine levels and levels where poor kidney function, which is a comorbidity in this patient population, has knocked out most of the patients in the prior trials. So FDA allowed us to open those up. They actually wanted us to open up the criteria. So we get patients up to dialysis. If you're on dialysis, you're out. But up to dialysis, you can come into the trial. And we also opened up the age parameters to age 85. And the mean amputation age in the U.S. is 73 years old with CLI. So moving out to allowing older populations, we really think we're going to enroll much faster.
So, you know, do that math for me. Does that mean that at 60 centers with a number in India and a 240-person trial that you believe you can enroll this trial in, let's say, less than 2 years?
Yes. So we've stratified our centers, and our Tier A centers will meet, and we've looked through their data, will meet up to 8 patients in a 12-month time period for our criteria. And that brings us to many more patients than 224. So we've taken a mean of every center enrolling 4 in a 12-month period, and that's driven our numbers.
So I'm going to hope that soon we're going to hear about the first patient being enrolled in the trial.
Right.
All right, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much, Ken. Thanks for joining us today.